Trump's not shy about using tariffs to get Europe to buy it. The US is already one of the world's largest exporters of natural gas. The challenge for Europe is that it already imports about 25% of its oil from the US. Trump's whole approach to international relations has always been America first. Will the EU give in to Trump's tariff threat and buy more US gas? Or will they stand firm and risk even higher costs and deeper political tensions? Donald Trump is back in the headlines, and this time he's got a new weapon in his arsenal, a weapon that could shake the EU to its very core.
President-elect Donald Trump is threatening tariffs on another US ally.
No, we're not talking about Twitter rants or election conspiracies.
This time, it's the European Union.
We're talking about gas. Yes, US natural gas, and Trump's not shy about using tariffs to get Europe to buy it. What does this mean for the EU, for global energy markets, and for the future of US-European relations? Let's dive in. Trump's message is very clear. Buy US natural gas or face steep tariffs. Simple as that. Back when he was in office, Trump had no problem telling the EU, you want to do business with us? Fine, but you're gonna have to pay. And now, with Europe's dependence on Russian energy in the spotlight due to the war in Ukraine, the EU is in a vulnerable position. Trump sees this as the perfect opportunity to strong-arm the EU into buying more American liquefied natural gas or LNG. Europe is currently importing about 40% of its gas from Russia, and after the invasion of Ukraine, the EU quickly realized how dangerous that dependency was. That's where the US stepped in, filling the gap with LNG.
Trump said he told the EU they must make up their tremendous deficit with the United States by the large-scale purchase of our oil and gas. Otherwise, it is tariffs all the way.
The US is already one of the world's largest exporters of natural gas, and since 2020, US LNG exports to the Europe have increased by 137%. But Trump being Trump wants more.
Who's your biggest competitor, your biggest foe globally right now?
Well, I think we have a lot of foes. I think the European Union is a foe, what they do in certain respects.
He's already talking about using tariffs as leverage to push the EU into deeper economic ties with the US, whether they like it or not. And trust me, the stakes are huge.
A lot of people might be surprised to hear you list the EU as a foe before China and Russia.
No, I look at them all. Look, EU is very difficult. I want to tell you.
While Europe is looking for stability and sustainability, Trump's pushing for more American gas imports at a premium. The challenge for Europe is that it already imports about 25% of its oil from the US.
The trade gap between the US and EU is $131.3 billion as of 2022, according to the US Trade Representative. Add this tariff threat to ones Trump has already made on America's other close trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and China.
And Trump is using that energy to force even more dependence on American energy. But the EU has its own ambitious energy plans, mainly a focus on renewable energy and reducing carbon emissions. Trump's proposed tariffs could further lock the EU into further reliance on fossil fuels, which isn't exactly aligned with their long-term goals.
If the EU were a country, they'd be the second largest purchaser of US goods behind Canada, and the largest supplier of goods to the US, beating China. In services, the EU leads on both sides as the biggest purchaser of US services and the biggest supplier of services to the US.
Another problem for the EU is that they're facing an energy crisis. After the war in Ukraine, they've scrambled to replace Russian energy, and the US has stepped in to fill that gap. But it comes at a price. US LNG costs more, and with Trump threatening tariffs, that price could go even higher. With inflation already a concern across Europe, this puts the EU in a tight spot. They don't want to be fully dependent on US gas either.
The US has a trade services surplus with the EU at $71.2 billion in 2022. European Commission spokesperson Olaf Gill has already responded to Trump's, quote, frequent comments about trade between the EU and US.
Especially as they work to diversify their energy sources and reduce reliance on foreign powers. Trump's whole approach to international relations has always been America first.
I respect the leaders of those countries, but in a trade sense, they've really taken advantage of us. And many of those countries are in NATO, and they weren't paying their bills.
He's never shied away from using US economic power to get what he wants, whether it's tariffs on Chinese goods or pressuring European allies into doing business on his terms. With Europe so desperate to break free from Russian energy, Trump sees an opportunity to force the EU into stronger economic relationships with the US. But this could come at a serious cost to Europe's long-term energy and economic plans. So what happens next? Will the EU give in to Trump's tariff threat and buy more US gas? Or will they stand firm and risk even higher costs and deeper political tensions? The stakes couldn't be higher. If Trump succeeds, he'll have cemented US-EU ties even further, but at a financial cost that could strain European economies. If the EU refuses, it could lead to a trade war that hurts both sides, and ultimately it's the citizens of Europe who will feel the pain the most.